The arena floor stretches wide under the sun. Chains hang from the wrists and ankles of a young woman standing in the center. Her name is Lucia, 19, daughter of a Roman senator who backed the wrong side in a political dispute. 3 days ago, she lived in a marble villa attended by slaves who served every need. 2 days ago, soldiers stormed her home and arrested her family on charges of treason. Yesterday, her father and brothers were executed swiftly, as Roman law considered merciful for citizens of their class. Lucia now stands alone in front of thousands of spectators. She wears the simple tunic of a condemned citizen. Around her neck hangs a wooden placard with the words, "Traitor's daughter who thought herself above Roman law." The crowd roars, sensing the spectacle about to unfold. 4 men enter the arena. They are not soldiers or gladiators, but actors hired for this performance. They carry props, a wooden throne, symbolic regalia, and tools for humiliation, designed to mark, not kill. The audience understands Lucia is to endure a public degradation ritual, a carefully choreographed spectacle. Lucia does not yet know the full details, but she understands the essential truth. Her dignity will be systematically stripped in front of 50,000 witnesses. The person who entered this arena will cease to exist, socially, politically, and symbolically. The lead actor approaches, speaking loudly for the crowd. "The traitor's daughter thought herself a queen. Let Rome show what happens to false queens." The crowd erupts in approval. This is no random cruelty. This is calculated public humiliation refined over centuries by Roman authorities. What is happening to Lucia follows specific protocols documented in legal texts and historical records. Roman law prescribed public humiliation not merely for entertainment, but to enforce social order. Witnessing degradation reinforced obedience, taught lessons, and warned others. You may know about gladiators, chariot races, or bread and circuses, but Roman sources reveal something deeper: systematic humiliation rituals designed for psychological impact. Survivors recorded trauma that modern experts recognize immediately. Tonight, we explore what Roman law prescribed, how it structured humiliation, and why these practices were considered essential for social control. We examine the legal, philosophical, and administrative frameworks that made these spectacles a precise tool of governance. Roman public humiliation was sophisticated and widespread. The Colosseum in Rome held 50,000 spectators, but every major city had its own amphitheater. Smaller towns maintained theaters for local audiences. Officials coordinated events, performers trained meticulously, and records ensured efficiency. The system was deeply intertwined with economics. Wealthy sponsors, entrepreneurs, and performers all profited, creating incentives to maintain and expand the rituals. This was social engineering in action: punishment, education, and spectacle combined. Roman thinkers wrote extensively about these practices. Seneca described the moral purpose of public degradation. Cicero explained how shared experiences of punishment bonded the state and the population emotionally. Legal theorists outlined humiliation according to crime and social rank. A Roman senator convicted of treason faced different procedures than a freedman convicted of theft, which differed from a rebellious slave. Roman public humiliation was precisely calibrated to enforce hierarchy and social norms. Documentation survived for 2,000 years because Romans did not hide these practices. Historians like Tacitus analyzed them clinically. Pliny the Younger recorded events as notable spectacles. The bureaucracy, performers, and officials all worked together in a system that combined efficiency, politics, and theater. In the next part, we will explore the specific rituals, the psychology of the crowd, and the stages of Lucia's public degradation, showing how Rome turned shame into an art form.
The arena settles into a tense quiet as the first rituals begin. Lucia is guided to the wooden throne at the center. She sits reluctantly, understanding that every gesture, every movement will be observed and judged by thousands. The audience watches not just her actions, but her posture, her expressions, and her reactions. The lead actor speaks again, projecting his voice. "Here sits the daughter of a traitor. Let her dignity be weighed by Rome itself." The crowd murmurs in anticipation. This is the first stage of humiliation, symbolic power reversal. A high-ranking family is reduced to a figure of public scrutiny, a lesson to all citizens. Roman spectacles followed a clear structure. Victims were first displayed publicly, their past achievements, wealth, and status stripped of power in the eyes of the crowd. This phase emphasized social inversion, showing that no social rank could evade the consequences of defying the state. Actors perform calculated actions to amplify the spectacle. They mock the condemned's former privileges with props, exaggerated gestures, and scripted interactions. Their purpose is not violence, but the psychological dismantling of prestige. Every gesture is choreographed. Every reaction is anticipated. The audience, numbering tens of thousands, becomes an instrument of the spectacle. Murmurs turn into shouts, laughter, and applause. Historians note that collective observation was essential. The punishment was not complete without witnesses internalizing the lesson. Lucia's placard is rotated for visibility. The words etched in red, "Traitor's daughter who thought herself above Roman law," remind the crowd and the victim alike of her crime. Public shaming was meticulously legal. Roman law detailed how social and moral transgressions should be exposed for maximum societal effect. The actors introduce ritualized symbolic actions, simple gestures that represented past indulgence, wealth, and pride being turned into instruments of public mockery. These rituals are repetitive, reinforcing the psychological impact hour by hour. Observers were trained in interpretation. Citizens learned which behaviors and ambitions were unacceptable by seeing their social equals degraded. The more prominent the victim, the stronger the lesson for all social classes. Lucia experiences the gradual stripping of authority. Her body language, voice, and expressions are monitored. She is forced to respond according to strict scripts, each misstep magnified. Historical accounts indicate that even minor errors could provoke renewed mockery, amplifying the humiliation. The spectacle is not only theatrical. Rome's actors trained to maintain narrative tension, ensuring that spectators remained emotionally engaged. This combination of law, theater, and psychology created systematic social control. In addition to the visual display, verbal ridicule is applied strategically. Historians recorded phrases that emphasized the inversion of social order, senators reduced to objects of spectacle, wealthy citizens exposed to scorn, and rebels reminded of their vulnerability. Roman philosophy justified these actions. Seneca wrote that observing punishment instilled moral discipline. Cicero argued that public rituals bonded citizens emotionally to the state, reinforcing loyalty. Roman law codified methods, different punishments for each crime and social class, carefully calibrated to maintain hierarchy. For the next stage, Lucia is subjected to ritualized tasks and symbols of submission. Nothing lethal is intended, yet every action is designed to erode self-respect, social identity, and psychological resilience. Sources show this was the central function of Roman public humiliation. The crowd's reaction evolves. Laughter mixes with admiration for the spectacle. Historians emphasize that these displays were entertainment, deterrence, and education all in one, carefully balanced to maintain Roman order. Behind the scenes, administrators manage the flow. Officials track every movement, ensure performers adhere to protocols, and maintain crowd safety. Records were kept with meticulous precision, often carved in stone or written on papyrus, demonstrating how seriously the Romans regarded these rituals. Economic considerations play a role. Wealthy sponsors gain political capital. Contractors and performers earn income. The spectacle becomes a microcosm of the Roman system, blending power, economy, and ritual into one controlled event. Lucia's experience illustrates the principle. Visibility of punishment amplifies obedience. Each observer internalizes the lesson. Transgression has consequences visible to all. Ancient historians confirm that these rituals were highly effective in reinforcing societal norms. By this point, Lucia's identity as a senator's daughter is transformed into a symbol of defiance punished. Her previous privileges have no bearing here. Every stage, every ritual, every gesture is designed to communicate a singular message. Rome is absolute. Disobedience is fatal to social standing. The first hour concludes with ceremonial announcements. Actors narrate her crimes and virtues, now turned into vices, highlighting how social memory is rewritten through humiliation. Every spectator leaves with a reinforced understanding of Roman law and social order. In the next part, we will explore the administrative, economic, and logistical machinery behind these spectacles, and how Roman authorities ensured their reach across the vast empire.
As the second hour begins, the spectacle shifts from public ritual to administrative precision. Behind the arena walls, Roman officials called editorium supervise every detail. They coordinate actors, assign resources, and ensure that the spectacle follows the law and tradition. Records show that every condemned individual was scheduled in advance. Their crimes, social rank, and past privileges determined the rituals applied. No aspect was left to chance. Rome treated public humiliation as systematically as it treated military campaigns or engineering projects. Actors and performers trained extensively. They memorized scripts, gestures, and sequences to ensure uniformity across spectacles. Historical sources suggest that even minor improvisation was discouraged. Consistency was crucial to preserve the intended message. Lucia is now guided through symbolic tasks. Each task has meaning, representing her family status, previous wealth, and defiance of the state. By performing these actions under scrutiny, her identity is methodically dismantled. The crowd observes not just the actions, but the psychological transformation. The Roman economy intertwined with these spectacles. Wealthy sponsors financed events to gain favor and visibility. Entrepreneurs competed to supply animals, props, and performers. The business of public humiliation was profitable, which incentivized expansion of the system. Logistical infrastructure was vast. Every city had theaters, amphitheaters, or public spaces for spectacles. Officials maintained lists of condemned individuals, scheduled performances, and monitored crowd behavior. Evidence from inscriptions and papyri confirms the precision with which Rome implemented these events. The crowd's reaction remained central. Romans understood psychology. Spectators internalize lessons when punishment is visible, consistent, and dramatic.
Historians note that the more prominent the victim, the greater the impact on public obedience. Legal frameworks codified what could be done. Citizens, freedmen, and slaves all faced different forms of humiliation appropriate to their social status and crime. Senators convicted of treason, like Lucia's father's family, experienced elaborate rituals. Lower classes had simpler yet symbolically potent punishments. The bureaucracy extended to performers, who are often managed by specialists called laniste. They coordinated costumes, props, and timing to maximize dramatic effect. Every movement, every word, every symbolic act had a documented purpose, blending theater and governance seamlessly. Lucia now participates in a public exercise of obedience. She follows scripted orders, performs gestures of submission, and demonstrates contrition as expected. Her identity as a free, noble citizen is systematically overwritten with the label of traitor's daughter. Roman historians recorded these events meticulously. Tacitus described spectacles analytically. Pliny the Younger preserved details in letters, and graffiti on amphitheater walls documented reactions of spectators. The emphasis was on recording methods and outcomes, not hiding shame. Psychological impact was central. Victims experienced stress, confusion, and loss of self-esteem, while the audience learned social boundaries. Modern scholars recognize these effects as deliberate early forms of behavioral conditioning. Economics, administration, and psychology combined, Roman public humiliation was an intricate system, not mere entertainment. Sponsors gained political advantage, officials enforced law and order, performers executed rituals, and spectators internalized lessons. Lucia's experience demonstrates the precision of Roman social control. Her public degradation is not random cruelty. It is a calculated, replicable method to maintain hierarchy, discourage rebellion, and transmit societal norms across the empire. The scale is impressive. The Colosseum held 50,000, but smaller amphitheaters and theaters across the empire hosted similar events. Every region replicated the protocols, ensuring uniformity and reinforcing central authority. Roman law and philosophy justified this system. Seneca emphasized moral education. Cicero emphasized emotional bonding, and legal texts detailed procedures for every social class and crime. The spectacle is as much a lesson for the living as a punishment for the condemned. Lucia's tasks continue. She walks through symbolic acts that reverse her former status, performing each under audience scrutiny. Every action reinforces Rome's message. Defiance is visible, shameful, and irreversible. The crowd watches, reacts, and absorbs the spectacle. Laughter, gasps, and applause are part of the system. Historians note that spectators were psychologically conditioned to recognize the consequences of social and political transgression. Beyond ritual and psychology, the Romans implemented documentation and record-keeping. Officials tracked victims, performers, schedules, and outcomes. This ensured accountability, uniformity, and historical continuity, demonstrating that public humiliation was a key tool of governance. Lucia now stands as a public example. Her identity as a senator's daughter is subordinated to her symbolic role as a cautionary figure. Every action, reaction, and gesture communicates lessons about obedience, loyalty, and hierarchy. The spectacle is both performance and administration. Actors, officials, and spectators are all participants in a system designed to maintain order across a vast empire. The precision of planning, execution, and observation reveals Roman social engineering at its height. Economic incentives, legal frameworks, and philosophical justification converge. The spectacle serves multiple purposes: education, deterrence, display of state power, and reinforcement of social hierarchy. Lucia's transformation is complete. What began as a young noblewoman standing confidently in her villa is now a symbol of defiance punished, privilege dissolved, and lessons transmitted to thousands. The third hour approaches. Administrators prepare for the final stages. Actors rehearse the concluding gestures, and the crowd anticipates closure. Everything in this system operates like clockwork, predictable, replicable, and psychologically effective. In the final part, we will reflect on the legacy of Roman public humiliation, its historical significance, and how these methods shaped societal control across centuries.
As the final hour begins, the focus shifts from ritual to reflection. Lucia's ordeal is a case study in Roman social engineering. Every act, every gesture, every reaction has communicated the message: obedience is required, privilege does not exempt, defiance is punished publicly. Historians note that survivors of these spectacles often recorded long-lasting psychological effects. Modern experts recognize these as forms of trauma, stress, anxiety, and diminished social confidence. Yet in Roman eyes, these were effective tools of governance. The concluding rituals emphasize reintegration of social hierarchy. Victims were sometimes released or returned to private life, but their public identity remained marked. Their humiliation served as permanent evidence to all observers of what happens to transgressors. Public humiliation was also a teaching tool. Children, citizens, and local elites learned lessons about loyalty, social norms, and the limits of personal ambition. Spectacles reinforced collective values through a shared emotional experience, uniting communities in observation. Rome's systematic approach combined law, theater, psychology, administration, and economy. The Colosseum, amphitheaters, officials, actors, sponsors, and spectators all participated in a unified process that controlled behavior and reinforced authority. Lucia's transformation is now complete. Her identity as a privileged senator's daughter has been overwritten by her symbolic role as a cautionary figure. Her story illustrates the power of visibility, ritual, and societal norms enforced through spectacle. Roman writers documented these processes extensively. Tacitus recorded them analytically. Pliny described events in detail. Inscriptions and graffiti on amphitheater walls preserved public reactions. Every detail was noted for history, showing pride in their methods rather than shame. Philosophical commentary supported the practice. Seneca argued that observing punishment instilled moral discipline. Cicero emphasized the emotional bonds forged between the state and citizens through collective witnessing of justice. Legal texts detailed procedures for every social class.
Public humiliation was a carefully calibrated system. Senators, freedmen, and slaves all faced punishments proportional to status and crime. Each ritual reinforced hierarchy, ensuring social cohesion and obedience. Economic considerations ensured sustainability. Wealthy sponsors gained political capital, performers earned income, and administrators maintained employment. The spectacle became both a social and economic institution. Lucia's ordeal demonstrates how personal punishment becomes collective education. Every gesture, humiliation, and response communicates lessons about social structure, obedience, and the consequences of defiance. The spectacle is also a demonstration of Roman administrative sophistication. Officials coordinated logistics, performers, audience control, and documentation. The scale and precision of planning rivaled military campaigns and architectural projects. Spectator participation is essential. Rome understood psychology. Humiliation is amplified when observed collectively. Crowd reactions, laughter, applause, gasps reinforce lessons and create a shared moral experience. Lucia now represents centuries of Roman methodology: punishment as public spectacle, enforcement of hierarchy, and social cohesion through emotional education. Every aspect of her experience is documented, deliberate, and replicable. Modern historians and archaeologists confirm that such spectacles were widespread. Smaller towns, provincial capitals, and major cities all participated. Public humiliation was not isolated, it was central to Roman government. The psychological, administrative, economic, and philosophical frameworks converge. Roman public humiliation was more than punishment. It was art, science, and law fused into a system of social control. Lucia's final actions are symbolic. She performs gestures of contrition, acknowledging the authority of Rome. The crowd witnesses the closure of the ritual. Her social identity has been rewritten permanently in the eyes of history. The legacy of these practices is clear. By observing, documenting, and replicating humiliation, Rome maintained control over millions across vast territories. The system was resilient, consistent, and psychologically effective. Public memory was shaped by spectacle. Citizens internalized lessons about loyalty, obedience, and hierarchy. Historical texts, inscriptions, and letters preserved these lessons for posterity. The stories of victims like Lucia remind us how empires enforce authority beyond laws and armies. The combination of ritual, observation, psychology, law, and economy ensured that the system endured. Public humiliation was central to governance, not peripheral. It was as technical, deliberate, and methodical as Roman engineering. Lucia's experience, though singular, illustrates the broader strategy of empire. Visibility, ritualized punishment, and collective observation as tools of social control. These lessons were repeated across centuries, shaping behavior and reinforcing hierarchy. Modern scholars studying trauma, social control, and historical governance recognize the sophistication of Roman methods. By combining spectacle with law, philosophy, and administration, Rome created a system where humiliation served as education, deterrence, and political reinforcement simultaneously. As the audience disperses, the lessons remain. The spectacle ends, but the impact lingers. Citizens, performers, and historians alike carry the knowledge of power, consequence, and order. Lucia leaves the arena physically intact but socially transformed. Her experience embodies the Roman ideal: public punishment as performance, law as theater, and obedience as spectacle. The empire endures not only through military might or legal codes, but through carefully orchestrated rituals that enforce hierarchy, loyalty, and fear. The lessons of history are clear. Social control can be as systematic and precise as engineering, with human dignity as its measure. Through the lens of Lucia's story, we understand the calculated brilliance of Rome's social architecture. The art of public humiliation was a tool of empire, a mirror of power, and a warning for all who might defy authority. The arena empties, but history preserves the lessons. Roman public spectacle, painful, theatrical, and deeply calculated, remains a testament to how societies can organize, observe, and control human behavior with precision and intent.